everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 3 of Journal with Witch, and this series has been so good so far. I've really enjoyed how much you all have been so behind this series. It is probably one of the anime that's kind of unlike other anime that I watch on this channel. Like I've said last week, it gives like Natsume's Book of Friends, March Comes In Like a Lion vibes. It's so delicate and so subtle that I feel like this big booming energy doesn't like kind of match how I feel about the subject matter, but it's so much fun to talk about with y'all. And last week, we got to meet Makio's friend. We got to meet her. She's delightful. And we also got to meet Makio's ex-boyfriend who, you know, may have feelings for her, but right now, he's being a platonic friend. We appreciate that. Makio needs that. She needs that stability in that in her life and that support. So I'm really excited to see what this episode's going to bring. She has proposed to Asa that they need to go back to Asa's house to get documentation that her ex-boyfriend said they might need for, like, you know, legal purposes, insurance, things like that. So it could potentially be a very emotional episode this week if we're going by like the rule of 3. Usually if you've not been hooked by episode 1 or episode 2, the third episode's going to be where they get you. So it's going to be interesting to see what we get this week. The only comment that I have is actually from Alexandra Q, who says, the visualization of Asa's loneliness as her being in this desert always gives me chills. The desert is a very good visual to represent that feeling of absolute nothingness, even when you're surrounded by people. And then Makio's I don't promise to love you is, again, brutal to a level with a 15-year-old girl who just lost her parents, but it lands with so much weight because of how honest it ends up being. For all that Makio claims not to know how to deal with people, I think she is really good at recognizing and seeing the truth of them. At least what we see from episode 1, and not adhering to any bullshit. I agree with that. I think that Makio, I love her kind of brutal honesty with Asa because I think it's needed. And I think that Asa, who's surrounded by people that are kind of being fake nice to her in light of her parents' death, she needs that. She needs that kind of like honesty that Makio provides. So I really appreciate that. There were a lot of really good comments with episode 1, and I'm really excited to see what you all have to say about episode 2 when we get to it. But I couldn't wait. After we had episode 2 and we found out that they were going to go and like see things together and go back to her house, I was like, no, we need to watch episode 3 as soon as possible. So anyway, I'm sorry. I can't wait to read your comments. I hope that you have enjoyed the reactions and discussions. Please, if you are able to, like the video, subscribe to me to see Journal with Witch on Thursdays with me, all that jazz, and let's not waste any more time. So we're going to dive into Journal with Witch episode 3 and see what we get. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, it's time to play everybody's favorite game, which is called Let's Not Cry in the Discussion. Oh, wow. Nope, this series didn't come to play. This series did not come to play whatsoever. Where do we start? I guess I feel like this episode is divided, which is based on a manga. So I think that's important to note that this series is based on a manga. And this is the first time in said series that it has distinctly felt like a chapter division. Like, I guess last episode you could have argued it that it was like the cooking and then we had the ex-boyfriend. But here, this felt like a very distinct line drawn between the beginning of the first part of the episode, which felt like a set of chapters all its own, and the second part of the episode, which felt like a chapter set all of its own. Like, so we have two different distinct portions of grief, and basically we have two different lines that go through the aftermath of loss, and that is the quiet, intimate dissection of that person's existence and what's left over from it, which we'll talk about. And then there is the return to reality, which is the rest of the world, because the rest of the world keeps moving as well. And that's a hard part about grief, is dealing with the fact that you're kind of in this little fishbowl trying to navigate through everything that's happening. But what you forget about while you're waiting and trying to bob through the fishbowl is that the fishbowl is floating inside of a giant bigger bowl where there are other things going on, and those things are happening without your, you know, with or without you, they're happening. So God, this was a powerful episode. It's going to be very difficult for me to talk about the part with Asa and her friend Amiri without crying. Because that part, like, that whole, like, connection of friendship, and that really got me, because I feel like there are things with my best friend that I can relate to. Like me and Makio and Daigo remind me a lot of me and my best friend. But then Amiri and Asa and their struggles remind me of me and my best friend. And it's just, that part would be very difficult to talk about without crying. So I'm going to, like, hold it together and be funny as I can through that part, because you got to use humor to avoid just being a sob mess. A sob mess indeed. But I want to talk about the first part of the episode. God, this was such a good episode. I can't emphasize how good it is. But here in 3, 2, 1, I want to talk about this process of going back through when you go back to a residence and someone has passed. The stereotypical, there's been all the mail arrive and nobody's been there to get it. I always wonder how they get all of that mail in there that when it just falls through, like how they just keep stuffing it up in there, but whatever. I love this shot here, and then the fact that it's the reflection, because when it opens up, it doesn't open up on them, it opens up to the hallway of the apartment. I like that there is a separation of the two of them, that it very much is emblematic of their relationship at this point. Asa and Makio, they're together in the elevator, but there is a separation. They're both grieving, but in different ways to different degrees. And I feel as if Makio has kind of accepted what's happened. I still feel like Makio has to grieve in some point. There's another series I was trying in my head to think about what other series this reminds me of, because I was like, it's like Natsume's Book of Friends. It's like March Comes In Like a Lion, but what's the other series it reminds me of? And I finally, it like clicked this episode, and it's A Place Further Than the Universe. If you've not seen A Place Further Than the Universe, you need to watch that series. It's really good. I have reactions on my channel. You should go check it out. But this kind of reminded me a little bit of the idea of how we grieve and moving forward and trying to kind of not let it get to us. But then we're going to talk about the second half of this episode when we get to it. But Makio has pretty much seemed to accept the fact that her sister is dead. I still feel like she has to grieve, but it's not going to happen probably till the end of the season. But yeah, this would be weird to walk into a house or an apartment where there's still food on the table and the things, and it's stuffy because no one's been in it, and it's been kind of like all stifled and the air's stagnant. The two times I have been through someone's things after they passed were when my grandparents passed, and I was like 8 and 14 at the time when that happened. So I was very young. I was basically Asa's age when my grandmother died, and we went through their house because my parents they were putting it up for sale. So I would have been Asa's age when that happened. And then my great grandmother actually dated a man in their like 80s. Because that's just how, it's a long story, but he passed and he didn't have any relatives, so we went through his things. That one was not such a big deal because I didn't know him very well, so it felt like you were going through an estate sale. It didn't feel very personal. And then my brother, there was a man that had passed like right next to the school, and the family of the man said that the kids from the school could go through his belongings. It was weird. They were like, if you guys want anything. And my brother took a trench coat from him, and I remember I was like, why do you have this man's trench coat? My brother's like, it fits. And my brother was probably Asa's age when that happened, and I was like, you have a dead man's trench coat, that's weird. And he's like, well, he's not using it. And I was like, but I would have been Asa's age when we went through my grandparents' things. But in that case, I didn't feel any attachment to anything they had. My dad's parents and my mom's parents are very different. My mom's parents are hoarders, and everything has sentimental value. Everything is like, oh, here's a trinket box that was your great aunt's from such and such, such and such. My dad's parents weren't like that. They didn't have sentimental things. They were big picture takers. Their sentimental things were photo albums. My grandpa was obsessed with taking photos and videotapes. He would have loved the influencer era or hated it, one of the two. But anything we took from their house were just like videos, photo albums, and like tapes, like VHS tapes. Like that's what we took because that was what had value to them. Photo albums had value to them, but there weren't like any clothes or any coats or anything that we took that was of value at the time. So, and it is kind of like, it feels ceremonial when you go through a house. There's a dissection of what you take and what you don't take, and you look through what they consider to be valuable. And it's so fascinating to me, like when you look through people's things, like what did they hold value in? And I said it during the OP that when my great grandmother passed, which I feel like it's to the Asa and Makio's benefit that none of the family seem interested in anything, because the worst part about when someone dies, in my opinion, is when people come out of the woodwork to try to take things. When people get greedy and try to take things. Like when my great grandmother passed, she had a little bit of an estate, and not much, but people would come out of the woodworks and be like, well, I want this and I want that and I want the jewelry and I want like the money and all this. And I was like so over it at that point, because there were people that were in our family that had never talked to any of our other family for decades, and suddenly they were there, and I was like, you just want things because you're greedy. And all I wanted was, she had a picture that she made when she was younger, and it's a sunflower, and she made it out of embroidery. She embroidered the sunflowers, and it's beautiful, and I love it, and I just wanted the picture. I was like, I'm gonna take this and you all fight over jewelry that nobody else should care about, and that was that. But yeah, I'm glad that Makio and Asa don't have to deal with that, because that just is such a tedious hindrance that nobody wants to deal with. But yeah, opening up the windows to let it breathe. And so I like that Makio's like, I'm going to handle the closet. You hand out all the other stuff and we'll sort out the paperwork at home. And I like how Makio is very reasonable. She's like, you take whatever you want with you and bring it back. She like understands the value of those things. I have like the red and white cup. She's like, that's your cup. And you take that. That has sentimental value. And she's like, anything else, we'll just rent some storage for it and sort it out afterwards. So Makio is very agreeable. I like how she handles things so professionally, and they handle it all together, and she gets to go through her room and everything. But what I love that she realizes, and we'll get past the OP to get to this. What I love that she realizes as she's going through the clothes, and this episode's called Discard, which, God, what she realizes is that her sister was sentimental, and she saved like her high school uniform, which looks very 80s. It looks very 80s, early 90s, which I'm like, ooh. I thought it was a suit at first. I'm like, that's cool. But then it being like a school uniform is so neat. But I love that Makio seems sentimental about very specific things, but not much from her childhood other than with like her friend circle. It feels as if Makio did not have the best relationship with her family, and so she's not very sentimental about those things, but at least not like Makio's sister is, that she realizes. But she seems more sentimental about like the found family she has, like with Daigo and her friends from school. Whereas she's surprised that her sister kept her school uniform, and then when Asa says she like kept making the pickled vegetables like what her grandmother made, and Makio's kind of surprised by that, I think she viewed her sister as kind of fickle and superficial, and so for her to hang on to those memories is surprising to her, because I think in her memories her sister made fun of her for that, and so she's surprised that her sister would hold on to those memories. She's like, she's not the person I remember. Because she's like, what on earth are you wearing? It's so weird. Like when she holds up the flannel, she's like, why would my sister have this flannel? I wore this flannel and she made fun of me. So, and the thing is, what's not spoken in this moment is maybe the sister was jealous of Makio. Maybe the sister was jealous that Makio could pull off the look and was so confident in her own skin that she didn't care. Because Makio has a very androgynous vibe here, which, look, I grew up in the 90s. The bowl cut, which is, I have an extension of that now, but the bowl cut and the very androgynous haircut, like that was all the rage in the 90s. And the flannel, very grunge, very Nirvana, like that was all very like early mid 90s. That was like the punk style and everything. So I wonder if the sister was kind of jealous of how bold and fearless Makio was to just be herself. And the sister, didn't have the confidence to do that herself until she got older. So she made fun of Makio here, but then later on when she had that confidence, she dressed how she wanted to, and it just happens to be how Makio was already dressing, and Makio was like, oh, she doesn't seem like this type of person. She would have never worn this before. Maybe that's, that's the thing. And then she just gets it to toss out. We'll talk about that here in a second. This part's really sad, and this part makes me have a slight existential crisis. Seeing this where like it says due next week. The idea that you are guaranteed no tomorrows makes me have like an existential crisis as I'm talking to you all. I'm like, oh God. Like I'm hearing like Hamilton's, why are you always acting like you're running out of time? Like just, it is scary in a way because people handle it different ways. They either freak out because they're like, oh my God, what if I died tomorrow? But then it's like, and the thing of it is, they had a freak accident. They were in an automobile accident that was just a freak thing. But that could happen to anybody. And that's terrifying. And so there's a part of you that has this existential moment of being like, oh my God, am I not doing enough? What am I doing? And then there's another part of you that just is like, that's just the way that the world works. You don't know. You don't know. Like the whole due next week and the whole like this monologue about the towel hung out for a quick dry. The plants that needed to be watered, the books that needed to be returned, the undergarments and glasses that weren't meant to be touched by anybody else. I feel like when sudden tragedies happen, it's such a different thing because like when my grandparents passed, it was like they were old. Like they were old when they had my dad and it was like expected. When my great grandmother passed, she was like 99. It was expected, when someone has like a terminal illness, it doesn't make it any less sadder, but I feel like there is like a pre-grieving, a grieving, and we call it post-grieving, but it's not really post-grieving. It's just an extension of grief integrated with real life and getting reacquainted with real life because you do have to come out of that bubble, which happens to Asa in this episode, and she does not handle it well. It hits her really hard, and we'll talk about it. But I feel like whenever it's something like age or terminal illness or something where you have time to prepare for the grieving, prepare for the mourning, prepare for the death, that it's a different thing than this. Because like your grandparents, you set affairs and orders. Like when my great grandmother went into assisted living, she sold her house. We sorted out the things. She was able to go ahead and she was in her 90s. She's like, let me go ahead and pick out the casket and get all, and that sounds morbid, but it is a procedure and a process. And it kind of helps in a weird way. Like I watch Caitlin Dowdery a lot, the Ask a Mortician on YouTube. Watch her stuff. It's incredible. She has a book called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Oh my God, it's amazing. But it describes her understanding of death through becoming a mortician. And it's really consoling in a way, in like a weird way, of how we process death and the ceremony of it. Because it's inevitable. Everyone will eventually die. Like that's going to happen, whether you want it to or not. So it's like, how do you handle that? And I feel like in this case, it's such a weird feeling because they weren't expecting it. So it almost creates this time capsule of a room, but then they have to sort through, and Makio's like, it all just vanishes into thin air. Like this will become something else. And there's kind of like, there's an intense sadness to it, but then there's kind of, Makio doesn't get to the other side of it, which is the kind of like quiet, subtle, delicate beauty of time going on. Because I drive by my grandparents that passed when I was 14. I drive by their house all the time, but someone else has owned it for like 20 years. It's been owned by someone else for 2 decades now. It's something totally different. And there's something beautiful about that the time goes on. It doesn't like stop. There's things that they built are able to be used by others, and there is something beautiful to that. But Makio's not, I feel like this monologue she's giving, to me, expresses her sadness. Like she's not talking about, oh, time marches on, and when, everything keeps on going. Like she's not talking about that. There's a melancholy to this, she's like, this is something that was all part of their existence, and it's vanishing before our eyes. And it's sad. And to me, her having this melancholy and this monologue to us, the audience, is telling me that she's sad about all of this. She says she's not, but I'm like, you're a liar. Like, this is really, it's affecting her. She's just not outwardly expressing it. And even the idea of her giving Asa the coat, she's like, oh, well, the fur is detachable. You can embroidery the collar. It'll fit into you. We can get it altered. Makio doesn't want to admit it, but she wants something of her sister to stay behind. She doesn't want to fully give up on the memory of her sister. Even though she says her and her sister didn't like each other, she's not ready to give up on that memory. Thus, she encourages Asa to keep the coat because it's something to remember her sister by and her mother by. But yeah, she's like, it'll be fine. You'll grow into it. You could make it your own. She's like, it looks nice. It's not too old looking. It'll suit you in no time. You should have something to remember her by. And that's when the ghost of the sister pops in. She's like, look who's holding on now. And you see the two of them there. Which makes me wonder. I love how in that moment you can see them both side by side. They have the same face, the same eyes, but Asa's mother's eyes are thinner. And like Makio has a more androgynous look. She has the thicker eyebrows, the hair, the shaggy hair. And the Makio's sister is, getting on to her for being like, oh, now you're sentimental and want to hold on, but you didn't want to do that before. Which makes me think that maybe their parents passed and they didn't handle it well amongst each other, which could have happened. Could have been a thing, Yeah. I thought we'd be done by now. I like that they had this like hot chocolate and she's like, what about your work? She's like, I've sorted out with my editor. And then, yeah, she's like, you take the cup. And then she has the pickled vegetables, which I'm going to be honest, I don't like pickled vegetables, but I love the sentiment that, Asa's mom took the grandma's recipe and kept making it. I was like, my mother does that with cooking a lot too. She's like, weird. And this grammar lesson, the English teacher me was like, peak cinema moment here where she's explaining past participles and the past perfect and oh my gosh, which to explain the past perfect tense, because she's saying, the action was finished before another action or another time in the past. That's the simple way of saying it. We're going to discuss that really briefly because she says, because Asa's like, oh my gosh, I referred to my mother in the present tense. And she's like, is that weird because my mom's not here? And she's like, have they talked to you about present progressive? And she's like, kind of, I'm not sure. And she's like, okay, well, let's say you're reading a book that you haven't finished. You don't just say, I am reading this book. Your past self, your present self, your future self are all part of the action. So since you all exist in the same plane, you say, I have been reading this book. So the have been, they're linking verbs. The English teacher in me is like, yay, let's talk about this. So the have been, they're linking verbs, and they're basically saying that you not only are reading the book, you have been reading the book in the past, and you are expressing that you are probably going to be reading the book in the future. So your past it's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, but these versions of yourself are doing this same action. It is continuous, right? So she's like, that's how that works. And she says, right now, you have been thinking of them. It's ongoing. She's like, you've thought about them in the past. You're still thinking about them now. You are probably going to be thinking about them in the future. And so she's like, that's how that works. And I love how she explains it to her, that she's like, it's a great example of explaining how grief works. Because she's like, you don't have to end the process or force that ending. She's like, you can still think about them. You can still address them as such. It's okay. And I love that because I've had friends that have lost family members, and now I'm at that age where our parents are getting older and health issues happen with them. And it's I think the worst thing is for somebody to say, oh, well, time will heal everything and eventually you'll stop grieving. Like, that's the worst thing you can say to somebody, because one, you don't know that. Like, grief can happen like that. You could be having a normal day, and then you think about somebody that's died, and then you can feel horribly sad for like the rest of the day. Like that's how grief works. Or you can, and grief is different per person and per individual. So like there's some family members I can think of that if I get to thinking about them, I'll get very sad and cry. But then there's other family members I think about and it like, I don't get sad at all. It's more like a memory of, it's a different kind of memory. So grief affects you differently per person that you've experienced it with. And it's such a complicated force. You always talk about, and then here's the thing. Asa says, you talk about mom in the past tense. And she says the past perfect. Basically illustrating that her and her mother, their communication has ended. And she knows it. To her, in Makio's mind, the conversation and her views with Asa's mother, they've already been concluded. She doesn't dwell upon those thoughts. She refers back to that past. It's perfect because it's complete. That's why it is. The past perfect is it's a completed thought. It is done. It is over. And now she's moved on to something else. Or so she labels it as. That's so interesting. Using grammar to coincide with grief is like, as an English teacher, I'm like, I was not expecting this, but I'm not mad at it. And it makes sense. She's a novelist, so she knows how the tenses work. I'm like, oh, yep. And then, yeah, we don't talk anymore about it. And so Asa will say something later on that is important, but I think the reason why Asa says it later on, and it's going to sound harsh to Makio, but it's not meant that way. But she says here, she's like, do you hate when I talk about mom? And Makio's like, no. She's like, how you feel is no one's business but your own. Makio is being respectful to Asa and saying, look, you can talk about your mother. I'm not going to tell you not to. She's your mom. You loved her. You still love her. You can talk about her all you want. Makio's just saying, my feelings towards your mother are done. I don't want to talk about her. I don't want to think about her, but I'm not going to tell you not to because that's your mom. And how you feel about her is your own business. So I think that Asa, she's trying to make Asa feel comfortable talking about her parents and saying it's okay to grieve that way. She's like, as long as it doesn't go against the laws of humanity. And she's like, the laws of humanity? And then Makio moves on. She's like, we can just make some sashimi or scattered sushi. I don't know what scattered sushi is. What is that? And whenever Asa yawns, she's like, you could get some rest if you want to. Makio is very observant. And she notices that Asa has been struggling with her sleep and with her energy. And she's like, you can rest. It's okay. You can talk about your mom. It's okay. There's going to be, I feel like, a point where Makio needs to grieve herself. And she's trying to keep that strong appearance and save face in front of Asa because she knows Asa's struggling right now with her grief. She's just not showing it, but she is struggling. And she's not wanting to compound into that. So she's keeping the respectful straight face right now, but I'm like, at some point Makio's going to need to grieve. I don't think Makio's had the time to really grieve her sister's loss yet. And she's like, you don't want to accidentally throw something out. And she's like, I'll be fine. And then later on, this part here, I assume that Japan has like recycling and then they have donations maybe, and then they have trash, because I don't think you just throw the clothing in the trash. I feel like they have different labels for donating. You can comment down below how that works if you're from Japan and know how that works. But there is something kind of not clinical, but there's something sort of detached emotionally by just putting all the belongings that had value to that person. They spent money on it. They cared enough about it. And I'm watching Gachi Akuda at the same time. So that is reflecting upon me right now. But go check out that channel and that show on the channel. But there is something kind of almost detached about how everything's just in these white bags that are indistinguishable and you're throwing it all out. And it's just and I like that she says goodbye to the bags. It almost feels like she's ceremoniously saying goodbye to the stuff on behalf of her sister, saying like, hey, goodbye. This is the last time you're gonna be involved in this family. And then she would get to Asa's room. She has all these sunshine colors by her bed. And she says, one thing at a time, their existence fades. And it feels unreal. And she says how little I'm sad about it. I don't know. I feel as if she is sad. She's just trying to convince herself otherwise. Because if you really weren't sad, you would be already focusing on, moving forward, and you'd be handling it differently. I feel like she is sad. She just, is struggling in her own way to process this grief. And she's more worried about Asa and how she's processing than herself right now. Because, yeah, like the sunset, like all of that, there's a lot of ennui in that. So, yeah, and then they leave. And that's that chapter set in the manga, I'm sure. But it's interesting because now, time does march on. So you've had this grieving period. You've had a month or so to move in with the aunt, to get used to life without your parents. And up until this point, Asa has been emotionally reserved, but she's cried about her parents' loss, but I feel like it's more of that. I feel like her sadness has been more about the loneliness and uncertainty of what to do with grief than the actual grief itself. But then, the 5 stages of grief. The 5 stages of grief. There's denial. What's the order of the 5 stages of grief? Because the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So, denial, I feel like the denial stage wasn't much. I feel like there's not much to bargain in all of this. I feel like, honestly, Makio is going to be the one that struggles more with the bargaining and depression angle of it, if I'm being honest. Maybe Asa will as well, but I feel like by the end of this episode, she has a better handle with her friend, Emiri. But anger gets expressed in this episode and lashes out in such an unexpected way. So it's her middle school graduation. So Asa is graduating from middle school. She's going to start high school. And I like that Makio's like, I'm supposed to take a picture of her. She's like, I'm supposed to take a picture of her, so probably isn't the best, but I'm just doing my best. I'm doing what I can for her to go off to her middle school graduation. Yep. And then here's the thing. I get it. I get it completely. The moment we find out why she's mad, I'm like, oh. Because, these are 14-year-old, 15-year-old kids. These are teenage kids. She just wants a sense of normalcy. And what Makio has been able to provide her is that. Because, yeah, everybody at the funeral, all the family members of the funeral are like, oh, you poor thing, and oh, your poor parents, and being really fake and not comforting in a genuine way. And Makio's like brutal honesty was refreshing to Asa, because she's like, oh, she's treating me like a real person. Awesome. And Makio, for the most part, like, hasn't treated her different. She's just been like, yeah, here's my friend Daigo, and I'm a novelist, and here, make yourselves at home, clean the food. Like, she's not handled Asa with kid gloves. She's been very brutally honest with her, but also treating her like a mature young adult and treating her normally. And in the midst of grief, you kind of want that. You want people to treat you normally and to see you as a human, because you don't feel human yourself when dealing with grief. You don't feel normal at all. So the last thing you want is for all these eyes to be on you and for you to feel even more isolated, even more detached from the reality of the situation, and feeling even more isolated. Like, that's the last thing you'd want. So I get completely, whereas, we have Asa and Amiri. It's like, are you coming to graduation tomorrow? She's like, I forgot. I almost threw away my uniform. She's like, seriously? And then she says, I'll be talking. Can we talk before the ceremony? I'll be waiting by the shoe locker. Okay. So this was at 10:07 and this is 21. Okay. So this was like last night really late. So 10 o'clock, that was like, 10 a.m.? And then by almost midnight, or like late at night, like at 8 or 9 o'clock, she was like, oh, hey, I need to talk to you. And then she sees Amiri. Yeah. So in the meantime, in between when she said, are you coming to graduation tomorrow? And being like, hey, I need to meet up with you, Amiri must have found out that everyone figured out about her parents and the phone tree blew up and now everybody knows. And she's like, Asa. And that's when they're like, we need you to come to the faculty office. And that's when she says, oh, Nara, I guess Amiri's name is Nara. She's like, I have to tell her now. I told my mom. And she called the teacher without asking. And they told everyone through the phone tree about your parents. Yep. And she's like, I haven't been home. So she's like, so here's the thing. They tried to call her and it didn't work because she wasn't at home. She was with Makio, but they don't have Makio's contact information. So they didn't know to contact her. And she's like, I just needed to get through graduation. Did you have to tell everyone? And then this is the crazy part, this is the part that makes me mad alongside Asa. Is they're like, if we hadn't someone might have said something insensitive. They didn't think to ask her first. And I don't know. I think it's kind of BS when they're like, well, we couldn't get a hold of you. I'm like, she has so many family members. You mean to tell me out of all the people that were at that funeral, you couldn't find one person to contact that had information on where she was staying? You couldn't have found one person at that whole damn funeral that you couldn't have contacted? I don't think they tried. I think they were just going to wait till she got there and then ask her. But I don't think they tried to dig any further. And I don't blame Asa for being mad because it does feel insensitive. Like they're like, you're being insensitive by not talking to me about it first. Like rather than saying, and if you notice, like they're like, oh, we need you to come to the faculty office. The way they, do I need to come over to Japan and tell y'all how to school? Do I need to do that? Do I need to come to y'all and sit down and be like, can y'all not be so insensitive? Like y'all are supposed to be in a sensitive culture. Like what is going on? Like, what is up with your middle schools and high schools? Like, what? Because it's mind-boggling to me. Like, do y'all not have counselors? Do you have school counselors? Do you have school counselors? They're like social workers. They're not therapists, but they are like social workers. Like, they talk to kids through grief and shit like this. Like, do y'all not have that in Japan? You need to get that. You need to get some counselors. If you don't, they can talk to these kids. And not a school nurse. Not a school nurse. I'm not talking about a school nurse. I'm talking about like a counselor, like an actual, like, sit down with them, what's emotionally going on counselor. Not a school nurse. That's a whole different thing. I know they have those in Japan, but y'all need a school counselor for real because like I feel so bad for her because she's like, she needed that sense of normalcy. She wanted to come back and she didn't want anybody to know and she wanted to graduate and be done with middle school. And then that's it. And they're like, well, we thought somebody might have said something insensitive. And she's like, well, what do you think they're going to do now? She's like, they didn't know. And she, like, you could see, whereas everyone else is dressed up, like, for, like, Midsummer, like that festival, she wants to grab the ribbon and be part with everyone else. And they're holding, and now she feels like she's being held back. And they're like, calm down. And here's the thing. The woman that's like, you need to calm down. That's not what you should tell someone in this state. You should be like, hey, what's wrong? Let's talk it out. Let's have a moment. You're valid in your feelings. Let's let it out. What's going on? Like, I want to hear you and talk it out. They're being really insensitive. And they're the adults in the room. Like, Makio would have bitch slapped all these people by now. But yeah, I don't blame Asa for being mad. She's like, now everyone will only see me as the girl with the dead parents. And the thing is that true necessarily? No. I mean, Amiri's not going to think that. But yeah, I get where she's coming from. Like, they're in middle school. So naturally, when you're in middle school, you think everybody has labels given to you. And I can understand where it's coming from. Yeah. There was a girl that was a few years older than me that struggled with that because her brother died in a really tragic car accident. And for a while, whenever you'd see her, they'd be like, oh, that girl, that's her brother died like this. Like, instead of knowing her for who she was known as the sister of the young man that died in the car crash. And I feel like she probably struggled with that for a while. Because for a while, that's all people knew her as. They're like, oh yeah, do you know her brother, this, and this. So I don't blame Asa for being upset. And this is the first time, Asa is integrating back into society. And now the curtain kind of comes down and everything else is going on, but she's been kind of just her and Makio kind of soaking in this grief. So now she's in an environment where people aren't as not only delicate but also understanding, and it's really hurtful to her. And God, oof. She's like, I just wanted to graduate like a normal student. And yeah, they should feel bad. They should feel bad. I don't blame her for kicking that. They should feel bad. And that line that she said, don't take it out on others just because you have it tough. Both of her parents just died. What is wrong with you, ma'am? Ma'am, just because you have it tough, she lost her family. Like, just... Do I need to come over there? Do y'all need me? Get me a plane ride. Let me sit down all these educators and be like, what are you doing? Because they wouldn't be making these anime with these scenarios if they weren't happening in real life there. Like, what the fudge? And then, yeah. And of course, Asa is, Emiri is really sad. And she's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, this sucks. And then she says, I hate you. And for Emiri, that's like the worst thing you could hear from your best friend, is like to feel like you've betrayed your best friend. And, I hated that she said, I hate you, because it's just her being mad in the moment. And you know she doesn't truly mean it. Like, but that, I'm glad they got to make it up in this episode, because I felt really bad for Emiri too, because she didn't mean for it to happen. These freaking adults being insensitive. And yeah, how you feel is no one's business but your own. I love how disheveled she is, like the scarf's off and the coat's barely put on, and she's just mad as she walks away. And then she ends up back at her house and is like, oh crap. I instinctively went back to my home. Because I'm sure that she's walked home from school every day here. She hasn't walked home from school back to Makio's place because that's new, you know? And then she, you know, in this moment, the show does such a great job of making you understand the feeling of being so disoriented. Like, she's so disoriented from going, because I'm sure, here's the thing, when they went to her old house, I'm sure she was in a fog and just following Makio, and then she got there and she's like, oh yeah, this is my house. And she probably wasn't paying attention to how they got there. So now that she's trying to make her way back, she's like, wait, what direction did we go? What did we do? And this show does such a good job of portraying grief and how it disorients you and how it consumes you to the point where you don't realize that it's disorienting you and making you forget everything around you. You don't realize it, but then it happens. Like, just, it's cinema. Absolutely cinema. And meanwhile, Makio's like, where the hell is this girl? It's Friday, March 17th. Where is it? That looks like a nightmare. That looks like a nightmare. Me, if I couldn't read Japanese trying to figure all this out, I would just get on the train and go. I would have to be like, do you know where Tokyo is? How do I get from here to here? I'm sure that there's people that speak lots of English in Japan, but I would just be like, I need your help, and I need help from here to here. Which color? What color? Tell me a color. Tell me a number. Tell me a color. Mm-hmm. That is the akin of the sad Charlie Brown walk, where it's just like, that's the sad Charlie Brown walk in real time. So yeah, she ends up being there, and Emiri saying, I'm so sorry. Can we talk in person? Where are you? I'm glad that Emiri at least tries to talk to her in person. She's trying to get a hold of her, being like, hey, I want to talk to you. Is that okay? Where are you? And Asa just wasn't ready. She's like, which way is home? And then she gets the text from Makio that's like, are you stopping somewhere with friends? Let me know. I like Makio's not like, hey, where are you? She's just like, hey, are you with somebody? Like, just let me know so I know, you know, that you're going to be home later. And that's the thing, when she's like, oh, I could contact Makio to find out where to go. But she's so distraught that she doesn't call her. She texts her being like, I can't remember the way home. And Makio's like, what in the world? So yeah, it's like 15 after. So it's like 3 in the afternoon. Interesting. Okay. And then she sees her. Did something happen? And Asa doesn't want to talk about it. And Makio's like, well, I have bypassed babies. I have bypassed toddlers. I have bypassed children. I have gone straight to I've bypassed preteens. I've gone straight to teenagers and teenager issues. Awesome. Great. She's like, okay. She's like, I'm sorry to say, but I like how Makio frames this because she's like, look. She's like, I'm not making you tell me what's going on, but I'm letting you know that there's no place for you to hide at my house. We are going to be around each other. It is going to be awkward. She's like, I have to care for you as your caretaker, regardless of how you feel about it. So just letting you know. And then she says, when we get home, we're having a foot bath. And Asa's like, I love how Makio handles it because Makio's like, I can't make her tell me what's going on. I'm not going to force her to. That's not in my nature. But she's like, I'm just letting you know, I'm here. I'm taking care of you. And I'm going to make you feel better. And then we'll go from there. You need to get in a good headspace first. And then she just sits there in front of her. And the phone keeps beeping. And she's like, I thought you guys always answered each other's messages. And then I like that when Asa says, she's like, why don't you go work or something? Get off my case. And when Makio's like, what a drag. Asa's not used to this because she's like, my mother would never call me a drag. She wouldn't do this. And she's like, well, I'm not your mom. So she's like, I would like to get some work done, but here I am. She's like, mother would never say anything like that. She's like, good for you. I love it. She's like, I'm not your mom. So deal. She's like, you and I are not the ones fighting. I love that line. She's like, look, you and I have nothing against each other. You're fighting with your friend. She's like, I ain't here to pick a fight. And Asa, makes a statement saying that she thinks that Makio skipped graduation. And I love that Makio's like, an outlaw. Is that how you think of me? I love that at first Makio acknowledges how she honestly doesn't remember if she attended graduation. She thinks she did, but she's not sure. And Asa's like, well, see, it doesn't matter then. And Makio's like, look, the graduation's not important. The graduation is a formality. At the end of the day, who cares on whether or not you went to graduation? We'll get your certificate whenever. But she's like, I don't remember graduation, but I remember being with my friends. And I remember being with Daigo and the others. She's like, graduation doesn't matter. She's like, I'm not mad. I don't care that you skipped graduation, but you need to talk to Amiri because if you guys don't end up going to the same school together, you may never talk to her again. She's like, we went to a combined school that was like middle school and high school put together. She's like, we've known each other for like 23 years. And I love how she said her and Daigo have never fought. Honestly, that's like me and my best friend. Like, we've had moments where we were like, that was dumb. Yeah, whatever. And then we're over it. Like, we've never had like a major fight. We've never fought. She's like, we're too chill for that. She's not outgoing either. She just, can wear a lot of different hats to seem that way. In her own way. She's like, I don't care about graduation. But when it comes to friends, I like that she phrased it this way. I won't say that school friends are for life. But she's like, it's sometimes really nice to have someone that's known you since you were a kid. And I would agree with that. I grew up in a really rural school, and I'm not friends with everybody I graduated with, but there's probably like a handful that I went to school with I'm still really close with, and it is nice. It's nice to have someone that you can kind of reminisce about your high school with, and like the good things about high school, the bad things about high school. Like, you can all be like, wasn't that the worst? And you're like, oh my God, yeah. Like, it's good to know somebody that you've known growing up because how it helps kind of almost show how much you've changed, but also how you're true to yourself having friends like that. At least having one, And so I feel like Makio's saying, don't throw away that one friendship just because of what it's like right now. She's like, there's no one else like her, something like that. Shouldn't you respect that? I like that Asa says, shouldn't you respect this rule that you're not going to like get in my way of my feelings and how I feel and question them? She's like, that's, it's more of a guideline than an actual rule, She's like, you're flip-flopping. It's a contradiction. She's like, that's humanity, girl. How you feel is your own business. But people, she's like, this is such a drag. And I feel like Asa thinks that Makio is calling her a drag, but Makio is calling the fact that she has to explain human social conventions. That's what she's thinking is more of a drag than Asa herself. She's like, well, I'll make tons of friends in high school. I'm not shy. And she's like, fine, sure. It's up to you. She's like, I'll get your graduation certificate. But I love that that detail of her sticking the feet out and they're red. And then she finds the text messages where they send the pictures of Daigo. And so there's this Matsu that they're friends with in their group chat. And there's also Kotako. So there's at least 4 of them that are friends, that have been friends for a while. And they get the pizza. It's a page ripped out of her notebook, folded into a heart. These 6 years, I wouldn't have been able to breathe without you. Thanks now and always, Daigo. That got me. That got me. Like, her friend basically saying, like, I wouldn't be alive if you weren't here as my friend. Like, to have someone that is that emotionally, like, connected with you and feels your value like that, that makes me emotional. Oh. And the fact that she, like, is tearing up as she reads it. She's like, she may not have even remembered what she wrote. How did you feel when you read that? She's like, my life is worth living. Yeah. She's, I mean, like, there's something so precious about having a friend that values your worth in existence. And that's, oh, that makes me tear up just looking at her in that moment. Because, yeah, there's the flowers that she has and, like, her books and everything. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that she looks a lot like Asa with the short hair and everything. She looks a lot like Asa in that moment. Yep. And that moment there where she admits it, she's like, you know, my life is worth living having a friend like that. And Asa's kind of like, oh shit. Like, I don't want to throw away what I've got with Amiri because she may think that way about me and I may think that way about her. Because then we see Amiri say, I feel like the only time I'm really myself is when I'm with you. Mm-hmm. So in this moment, Asa's realizing that she's having a moment like Makio where Daigo and Amiri both are so connected with them and value their friendship so much. So we see that, like, a few hours ago, 3 hours ago, there was like 4 missed calls. And she says, I'm so sorry. Can we talk in person? Where are you right now? Since they said he would apologize too. I swear to make my mom apologize also. I'll apologize as many times as I need to. I'm really sorry. I love you no matter what. I'm sorry for all the messages. Please, you don't have to reply. Just read them. Like, just, that's such a friend. And then I didn't know she would video call her or phone call her, but this, like, made me want to cry when she says, about what I said to Mary, I don't hate you, not at all. And her saying, can I tell you about my mom and dad sometime? You're the only person I can talk to. And I don't think Makio is mad about that. I don't think Makio is mad about her saying that because, I mean, Asa knows that Makio doesn't really like her talking about her mom because Makio doesn't like her mom, or at least has had a lot of conflicting estrangements from her. So she's like, Amiri, you're like my neutral party I can talk to, and you're not going to get mad or have these emotions. And she's like, I need to be able to talk to you as a friend. And you need that because, and I think Makio knows that. Like, Makio knows she's there for Asa in a familial way and in a way that Amiri can't be there. But at the same time, Amiri is a friend that Asa needs that's not family, that she can talk to as a neutral party. And you have to have that. So, oh, what an episode. What an episode. And she's like, is this just another way of holding on? Yeah, the little notes. Mm-hmm. And the shoebox. I feel like, yeah, it is a way of holding on to the past. It's a way of holding on to those relationships. It's a way of holding on that sentimentality. There's that fragility of mortality that you hold on to these little moments that they don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time, they're so precious. And this series, like, holds it so delicately, these topics. I just... Oh my God. I wasn't expecting to cry in this episode. She's like, what a drag. Like, what a drag having to have emotions and grieving and moving through that. What a drag. And there's the coffee cup. There's the coffee cup with the stripes on it. Love that. I'm going to be excited to see where this goes, like with the cactus and all of this. It's going to be interesting. Interesting indeed. Oh, y'all. Oh, y'all. Oh. This episode was emotional. Wasn't expecting to cry, but here we are. That rule of 3. If you weren't sucked in by the 3rd episode, then I don't know if this show will be for you, because if that didn't suck you in and tug at your heartstrings and rip your chest open and just expose everything, then I don't know what else could, but... Oh my God. So good. I can't wait to talk to you all about this in the comments. This episode was incredible. I loved it. Every bit of it. And I'm really excited to see where else it goes to. So, I'm going to go dry my eyes and get something else to drink. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon with episode 4 of Journal with Witch. And I'll see you then. Bye.